All right, let's talk about it. AEW for January 21st. No, 20th, I'm sorry. And, people are going to, I'm not even going to say nearly what I could, and people are still going to misunderstand and or hate this. But the opening segment, and I'm not going to go into too much detail because I didn't watch a lot of it. Because it's at this point, it's gotten, they can't help themselves when they do something even nice and good, but that they've got to go too far. And I thought it was a great gesture that they gave Brodie Lee's son the contract. And of course, I found out he can activate it when he's 18 if he wants to. I thought there was some kind of financial remuneration, $50 a week, buy the kid a goddamn savings bond, but apparently it's a wrestling contract. But nevertheless, at this point, Brian, there's no other way to say it than this was not professional to have this on television, and they're not doing the kid any favors at this point, because I know a lot of the AEW fans are all inclusive, but a lot of people that may have just wandered by are going to be very unkind to this kid because this didn't belong on a wrestling program. It didn't belong on anything they're trying to do professionally. The tribute show was great, and having the kid be involved was great, but at this point now, it's just ridiculous. And everybody say, "Oh, Cornette, he's 8 years old and his father just passed away." I understand that. I was 7. It sucks. It will suck every day for the rest of his life. But I got a bunch of tributes from people that worked with my dad and organizations he was involved in. And a lot of people wrote nice things about him in the newspaper. And there was a lot of talk like that, but I didn't then get invited to the fucking editorial meetings at the Courier-Journal the next week. So anyway, I'm not going to criticize the kid, but at this point, come on. It's supposed to be good God, when Luke Perry died, they should have featured Jungle Boy more. So anyway, I don't know. I understand what they're trying to do, but this is still supposed to be a professional program. And in the midst of that business that was doing, and I'm not even going to critique the individual parts of it, it was Jack Evans and Angelico and Luther, and that was the 3 of them, right? Was it a 6-man or an 8-man? There's so many people standing around the ring.
And
Serpentico's involved in that. One of the smallest of the grown adults that they've been able to find, against the Dark Order and Adam Page. And besides any interaction involving Brodie Lee's son, I don't know what is more embarrassing on this program, just the existence of Dwarf Dongsucker or Luther, who works like a crippled baked potato. It's like they just found some old fat neighbor and said, "Here, you can wrestle, come on." And a lot of people actually, since I've mentioned this before about how this is clearly and only because he's old friends with Jericho and Callis and Omega and all the guys from Canada. But Cornette just doesn't like the Japanese wrestling legends. No. Giant Baba, Antonio Inoki, Ricky Doza, Japanese wrestling American that became legends in Japan, Stan Hansen, Bruiser Brody. There are plenty of Japanese legends. Luther is not a Japanese legend. I don't know what story you people are buying or where you're getting your information, but Brian, back me up on this or disagree with me if I'm telling an untruth. Dr. Luther was an outlaw guy from Canada that worked for an outlaw promotion in Japan, not one of the big organizations, for a brief period of time in 20-something years ago, and has been, except maybe if he wrestles on his birthday in his hometown in Canada, a complete non-entity and non-participant in any kind of Major League Wrestling over the past 20 years. Am I shorting this guy anything here?
I agree with you, and as someone who actively traded for Japanese wrestling tapes all the time in the 90s, you cannot call him a Japanese wrestling legend. I didn't know people were actually saying that.
Yes. No, I got that tweeted and emailed to me. So the point is, he's a friend of one of the guys who had some pull, and he got a job, and now they're letting him wrestle on television. He's going to hurt himself or somebody else. Look at the fucking condition he's in. Look at the way he looks, and look at the standard it sets that you can look like that and perform like that and be on this program. What does it tell the fucking viewer? And all the fucking wrestlers they've got, I'm sure, are just thrilled because he used to wrestle in Japan before I was born. And I'd love to go to Japan, even for free, because that's what they do half the time. They go for the experience. I had a couple of independent guys tell me one time several years ago they were going to Australia for 3 weeks. I said, wow, that's a long trip and a long time. Well, we're getting plane tickets, hotel, and they're giving us $500 a week spending money. I said, you could goddamn get a job at Costco and come out at 3 weeks better at the end of that than going to Australia all the way around the world and beating yourself up. They said, but we've never been to Australia. Anyway, they had a birthday cake because it was Brodie Lee Jr.'s birthday. And of course, Luther got put in the cake, but he missed it the first time and had to rub it on himself. And now somebody said, Cornette's knocking people being put in cakes. No, I'm not. Just when they can't hit the fucking cake right. Besides, every time I did it, it drew money. Except for Chattanooga in the summer of '83. But that was my practice run.
Except for the time Jericho did it to you.
We drew a bit of money with that. And Lance helped. But anyway, so whatever the match happened, I don't know. And then Paige blew him off and didn't join the Dark Order. And there you go. Anything to add on this?
You know, it's uncomfortable coming up with any kind of critique because of what surrounds this, why they're doing it. But it did make me uncomfortable having Brodie Lee Jr. on the show again in this fashion. Not in the crowd waving to people, but literally a part of an angle.
Actively participating.
Yeah, it made me uncomfortable. And I've been someone who has really thought that AEW did a great job with the tributes to Brodie Lee. You know, they kept referring to him. Excalibur was unbearable on this week's show, specifically during this segment and this match. But as -1, I had to figure out what they were talking about. Before Brodie Lee passed, I don't remember any references to -1 on TV.
Well, no, there weren't any because they didn't need to do it then. That's what they call him, and that's cute. You know, the other guys have a number, so he's a little bitty kid. He's -1. That's cute, but this is not a thing until 2 weeks ago, and they assume that everybody that watches their television program, and they're actually right. That's why they've not picked up any viewers in a year and a half, because everybody that watches their television program are the people that have the time to go out of their way to delve into everything they put up on the internet and everything they put on YouTube and everything they do, and they know everything because you have to figure it out because it's not often explained properly. And so their audience that they have knows that. It still doesn't make it any more palatable to look at or make it any more professional or make it any easier for anybody that accidentally might start watching the program to figure out what the fuck's going on. And honestly, they've backed themselves into the corner where they have so many guys that look like children and so many childish things going on that when they even do it for a reason like this, it just looks to a viewer who might wander in. Is this kids wrestling? Is this an MTV thing? Is it a game show? What's going on?
That's the thing.
It doesn't.
This was something.
Go ahead.
This was something they should have filmed after the show went off the air, and if it worked, use a clip of it on the air, but not start the show with it. It felt like something that belonged on Canvas Cavity. Yeah. And by the time Luther came out, I could understand the people who disagree with me specifically, but you even lately to have seen it, with my assessment of Jericho and what he brings to the table. Here are the positives you could say. Jericho was a star. People know who he is. Not even getting into his work and his look or anything else. There are no positives to Dr. Luther being on this show. Because if you thought that segment looked amateur hour, the birthday party with the kid, you don't know what's going on, bringing him out with Serpentico it just made this whole thing feel like public access.
Serpentico's barely bigger than Brodie Lee Jr. and is presented as some kind of professional wrestler in this environment.
Yeah, so the whole thing, I really hated it. I shouldn't say that. I really didn't like it. I didn't like starting the show with it. It felt like public access. Excalibur was unbearable.
Yeah.
The match itself, I couldn't get into based on all this. I will say I got a little bit of a kick out of the end of it where they asked Adam Page to join and he said no, but they were prepared for him to say yes. And on the screen it said he said yes. And all of a sudden there were mass dancing guys coming out and they had to rush and stop them and get them to go in the back. I got a kick out of that. But like I said to you last week, the Dark Order are now baby faces. They're now a goofy comedy team of baby faces. That's just what it is. But
you know, you got a kick out of it. It's something to laugh at. You know what? When you sent me the clip of Randy Orton with his face, his asbestos mask on, his burned face from Raw, emoting all of the cinematic verbiage that he was given. Look at the comments on YouTube, and this was the WWE YouTube channel. Look at the comments on the YouTube from their own audience, laughing at it in a bad way, laughing how bad it was or how stupid the whole thing is or how silly the idea is that they're setting these people on fire. I don't know what their comments are like. I don't look at their YouTube shit, but there's a lot of people now are starting to really, you know, what the fuck? COVID has killed wrestling because now they're trying to be some kind of television program instead of wrestling. Anyway, I never wanted a reaction from any of my programs that, especially whether it be my devoted viewers or people that just might see it for the first time, that they would laugh at it. Maybe sometimes with it, but I never went for laughing at it. And that's what people are doing with all these programs. Anyway,